is the 77 WABC minicast.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Buchanan, West Virginia, where a state police trooper helped rescue an elderly woman and assisted a 10-month-old infant during a house fire. The trooper, C.J. Elmore, was the first law enforcement officer to arrive on the scene after responding to a reported commercial structure fire. And when he got there, he saw smoke coming from a nearby residence. So he ran up and he heard a male individual shout out, "My baby girl," as the man ran into the smoke-filled home. The trooper then immediately began moving to the residence, quickly ran through the smoke to the back porch. He located an elderly woman, helped her get out, and then he realized that the 10-month-old infant who had been removed from the home was in dire need of medical attention. He then rushed that infant to emergency medical services. Thankfully, all 8 occupants in that residence, which quickly became engulfed in flames, all the residents were safely evacuated without major injury, thanks to the great work of the fire department and the men and women in blue. And bravo to them and all the great work they do every day to protect all of us. So much happening tonight. Wait till you hear some of the crazy comments coming from Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, who met with Zoran Mondani of New York this week. Now, Mondani and Fry seem like they're 2 peas in a pod. And we also heard from Fry essentially saying that I guess ICE is going to have to pay for the damage they caused. Are you kidding me? ICE got rid of 4,000 violent criminals off the streets of Minneapolis. 4,000 of them were taken off, according to ICE. And yet, and they're leaving because they say, okay, our job is pretty much done. But I guess that's not good enough for Jacob Fry. We're getting into his comments in a moment. Also, you just heard from Betsy Brantner Smith, and you heard her say that this may be a big breaking news night in the Nancy Guthrie case. Clearly seems like there is a lot that is happening right now. And that is because the bomb squad's out, the SWAT team's out, the mobile command center. You don't just move all those assets if you don't think you might be hot on the trail of something. And there is a report, as you heard from Betsy, that somebody has been detained. Again, it doesn't mean they're arrested, but usually you have to have some sort of, pretty significant evidence to say they were in the area, they're tied to the area, they were there at the time. We have a right to question them to see if they were a part of it or if they saw something unusual. All of those things could provide a reason for detention and a reason for a search of their property, whether it's a vehicle or a home or whatever. We saw it the other night with the Carlos guy who, remember, was detained and then released. They just said they did not have enough to hold him. Not necessarily that he's cleared. In fact, they're saying tonight, the sheriff, that nobody has been cleared, which was an interesting phrasing of turn. Here is also Sheriff Chris Nanos. This is the guy from Pima County in Arizona. And there was another big break today where he revealed in an interview with Fox that he essentially said there was some significant DNA that was found in the house. Now, they're saying there was no glove found in the house. There was a glove found several miles away, about 2 miles away from Nancy Guthrie's house. But that inside the house, they found what they're calling non-familial DNA. In other words, it's not Nancy Guthrie's, it's not her family's. It's also not people who kind of hang around at the house, like a cleaning person or maybe a home health care aide, because remember, Nancy Guthrie's 84 and needed a lot of care for her health. Maybe the gardener. That's why they were probably collecting all of their DNAs the other day. Remember, we heard reports a couple days ago that they were doing that. But here is Sheriff Chris Nanos talking about the DNA that was found in the house that is now being checked to see whose DNA was it. Maybe put it in a data bank, see if it's somebody with a criminal history. Here it is.
You've got DNA, so that's of use. Now we have to go through and try to eliminate people or make people. We're so hopeful that we're getting closer. We just believe that.
And let's pray that that's the case. Betsy Brantner Smith even said, hey, Rita, we might even have something later on in your show tonight. So everybody buckle up. This could be a big night. Here is also TMZ, because remember, they have been getting these letters. They were the first ones to get what was a ransom letter. We're not sure if it's good or not, if it's legitimate or not. Even the FBI isn't even sure. But they apparently got a third message today. Listen to this.
TMZ has obtained a third email from the man who claims he knows the identity and the location of Nancy Guthrie's kidnapper, and he has now upped his demand. We know it is the same person who wrote the other two notes because the Bitcoin address is identical. So he says that he is going through TMZ because he does not trust law enforcement. He's essentially saying, you don't trust me and I don't trust you. What he is suggesting is by the FBI upping the reward to $100,000, it was designed to discredit him. He says, quote, to discredit me. So what he is saying is he now wants the following. He wants one fraction of a Bitcoin worth $50,000. And for that, he says he will give up the name and location of the kidnapper. He says he will not cash that until the kidnapper is actually arrested, and then he expects the second Bitcoin fraction, another 50,000. So he wants the $100,000 reward, he says, but he wants it in this form and not simply coming forward to authorities. He has a variety of reasons on why he doesn't want to come forward to authorities, one of which is interesting. He says it's because that it could compromise his possible freedom. Now, we don't know what that means. Does that mean that he is peripherally associated with this kidnapper? He does not explain what that means, but he says it in this email. Now, there's something really important here, that he says that when he gets the initial payment, and this is a quote, he will give up, quote, the name of the main individual. The main individual. So clearly, he is suggesting, and he did insinuate this before, but he is saying it squarely here. The main individual, that means if this is legit, he has accomplices. So he does refer to the current state of Nancy Guthrie. We are not going to get into what that is. We have forwarded this on to the FBI. They asked for it, and we gave it to them. We received this email just before noon Pacific time, Friday, today. So again, the third email, he says this time, this is it, that it's his final time to approach anybody. The third time is it. Now remember, he said that last time too, but he says he's coming forward now because of the increase in the ransom reward. And we will see. The authorities are looking at this, I guess, to determine if it's legitimate. We have checked this Bitcoin address, and so far, no deposit has been made.
Wow, that is so interesting. Again, we don't know if it's accurate or not, but you just heard Harvey Levin saying in this third sort of email that they've gotten, he will give up the name of the main individual, this person says. Again, we don't know if it's accurate, but he is clearly passing on all leads to the FBI, and it may be accurate. Now, what's interesting is there in Harvey's report that we're just hearing about, because he just got it a few hours ago, that the individual is claiming, I'll give up the main individual, meaning there's multiple, as you heard Harvey emphasize. And this is fascinating because earlier today, President Trump, who has been glued on this case, he's been obviously following a lot. It's a very high profile case. He also knows Savannah Guthrie. He's had conversations with her. The whole country, the whole world wants to see Nancy Guthrie return. President Trump didn't rule out that it might even be cartel related. he kind of left it open. Listen to this. This is what he said earlier today. He was asked on the White House lawn. I think he was leaving for Fort Bragg at the time. And this is what he had to say when he was asked about who might be involved in the Nancy Guthrie case.
Do you think the cartels are at all involved in Nancy Guthrie's case or another nation state potentially?
You can't say that yet. It's a little bit early, but it's somebody either knew what they were doing very well or they were rank amateurs. Either way, it's not a good situation.
You know, it's amazing about President Trump. He tells it like it is. I think if President Trump knew for sure at that moment who it was, he would say, oh, I think it's more leaning towards this. Or if somebody said, is it cartel? And it wasn't, like that they totally ruled it out, you know, without any tentacles to cartels or anything like that, he would say, no, I don't think so. If he had evidence that it was out. So he's always a straight shooter. To his credit, he always answers so many different media questions, whether he loves or hates the media organization that's asking the question. He's approachable. He's not afraid to answer, and he always answers pretty straight ahead. I give him so much credit. And there he kind of left the door open, at least as of a few hours ago. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Lamar in Fayetteville, North Carolina, line 4. Go ahead, Lamar.
How y'all doing, Miss Rita? I just want to let you know that we took time, myself and my outfit, to call you the other night. We took time out from looking at a couple of our skips down here, but we couldn't get through. But the night wasn't a total failure because right after we got hung up with you all, we ran into a couple of our skips right down there on Hay Street, coming out of those Mama Son pleasure venues. But anyhow, I digress. Last time we talked, I made good on my pledge to try to contact some of my people down on the frontera, and I did speak with one of the comandantes who's with the Federal de Camino. That's the police, the federal police agency of Mexico that surveils and controls all major points of entry in and out of the northern territories, the states of Mexico. And he said something that, I must confess, surprised even myself, someone who is in the fugitive apprehension profession, something I should have known but was unaware of. He told me, and I quote, and you'll appreciate this, Miss Cosby, because you're all ready to be a member of the new Bugs Bunny, or I should say Bad Bunny era in our country where you got to speak Spanish. The comandante told me, he said, vaquero, ni son raza, ni son de banda. The translation there is, raza means, they refer to themselves as raza. He said, they're not Mexicans, the people behind this, and they're not banda. He said, son de clica y son mareros. The difference between a pandillero and a marero is a pandillero is a member of a mainstream organization, crime organization like Jalisco Nuevo Generación or Cartel de Sinaloa. A marero is just a career criminal, and a clica is a small criminal group, usually of 4 to 8 people, usually men, but that's even changed because now they're co-ed too. They got women involved in these clicas, and he said something that I was unaware of. He said, no son de banda, son clica, y son chilenos. And when he said chilenos, that they're from Chile, the Chileans, I almost fell off the seat. And I
Wait. That's interesting, Lamar, porque yo puedo hablar español. I can speak Spanish. So let's go through this real quick here. Where did he get Chilenos from? That's interesting.
Well, he said Chilenos, and when he said that, of course, my retort was, well, ¿por qué mi comandante? ¿Por qué dices Chilenos? And he said to me, ¿no sabes que hay clicas chilenos allá en su país que se especializan en home invasion?
Yep. And by the way, you got to speak Spanish. I understand it that there are Chileans who are involved in home invasions in that area, but speak in English for the rest of our audience, Lamar.
Oh, yes, ma'am. He pointed out to me in no uncertain terms. He kind of embarrassed me when he said it to the language he used. He said, don't you know there are Chilean cliques in your country right now that specialize in home invasions? He pointed out to me that they've been having trouble with them in Durango and some of the other northern states where they're targeting haciendas. A hacienda in Mexico is a very large ranch-style house, and they're somewhat opulent as well. They've been the target of these Chilenos, and that really surprised me. me. And they're also known as agrupaciones ilícitas, small groups who are dedicated to this type of criminal activity. But in closing, Ms. Cosby, I'm just going to say something. I don't want to seem pessimistic, but I wouldn't put too much hope in any breakthrough coming from the DNA that was retrieved by the CSU team down at the crime scene, because quite frankly, Ms. Cosby, I've been in this apprehension profession for some time, and I don't care if you send that DNA to Tallahassee or Quantico, you're not going to have anything, because none of these people who are gotaways in our country, millions of gotaways, criminal gotaways in our country, are in any of our CONUS continental United States databases, and that's to include the NCIC. So what we're doing right now, what law enforcement is charged with right now, is trying to find phantoms in our country that have been released by the prior administration. And on top of all that, adding insult to injury, the local county mounties out there in Pima County, who I'm familiar with, particularly this high sheriff, as we say down here in Dixie, are not figures to inspire confidence. In my opinion, the best thing they could do right now is turn this whole case over to the Texas Rangers, who are the preeminent law enforcement agency in dealing with these cross-border operations.
And hang on, Lamar, hold on. You got some great points in there. Let me just ask you one thing. You brought up the Chilenos, and you may have even heard that I even mentioned the fact, obviously with the DNA cases, I'm not involved in fugitive apprehensions like you, but I've covered many, many crime cases and talked with many people who are responsible over the years in very pivotal roles, and obviously top of the law enforcement and all that stuff, folks, too, as well. But you're right about the database. Does he, I guess my question is he's clearly surmising that it may be Chilenos because it's these group of individuals. He did not have any firsthand knowledge or anything. He just surmises that there's been these groups of Chilenos who have been doing this in that area. Is that right? I just want to make sure I understood you.
Oh, that's 100% right. And what we have to understand, Ms. Cosby, this comandante, he's not with the Policía Judicial or la Policía Estatal. He's with the Federal de Camino. This is the federal police agency that has an overview of all surveillance of the northern territories, all points of entry. They know what is going on in that border and what's going on in proximity to that border on both sides.
You know, that's, by the way, Lamar, that's a great point, because you're right. Nobody knows better than those who are in the area. And that may be why what you just said. And that's an interesting explanation, that there's been this group of these individuals. Like you said, also that shows some professionalism, some organization, and yet not as maybe high end or sophisticated as a cartel or something like that per se, or a much more sort of huge professional organization. But still, if they specialize in these things, they have some training as opposed to just somebody trying it off the street or whatever. So that's an interesting thing. That could actually, he may be spot on. And listen, I hope obviously local authorities and the FBI, because don't forget, I know you bring up the Texas Rangers, but the FBI is involved. And the FBI is also tremendous. No doubt. 100%. Lamar, very interesting. Muchas gracias por todo. And we'll take your calls, everybody, after the break.